Fear is like a dog, you know, it barks at the door even when no one's there. And because of that, I was like, oh my gosh, what if I'm stupid? What if my writing is bad? What if my art is terrible? What if nobody watches my videos? But, you know, in the end, I think things generally do work out. And if you fail at something, then that serves as a lesson for you to succeed at something in the future. Alright, welcome back, everybody. This is my third time trying to film this video because I keep like saying the wrong thing and it sounds really weird. Third time's the charm, so hopefully this one goes well. I'm also back in school now, which is why my background looks chaotic, but unfortunately I don't have anywhere better to film, so sorry about that. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about self-esteem and why you're probably doing better than you think you are, especially if you are somebody who struggles with lower self-esteem, or if you deal with imposter syndrome or anything else that makes you think that you're not worthy of success, or anything that makes you think that you're not as skilled or talented as you actually are. As always, my videos are not like instruction manuals for like what you absolutely must do. They're more so lessons that I have learned just by living life and experiencing things. So everything that I say, of course, is based on my opinion and my experience, and you can take whatever resonates with you and leave what doesn't. So I'm somebody who worries a lot, and I'm sure that a lot of people relate to this, but I tend to worry a lot about outcomes, right? Like, I worry whether or not something I do will work out, whether something I do is good, or if I'll be successful in a certain regard. If I'm studying for a test, for example, no matter how much effort I put into it, no matter how many hours I study in advance, there will still be a part of my brain that fears that I'm going to fail or that I'm going to do really terribly. Most of the time I do well, but like there's still this fear in the back of my head that I'm going to suck and that I'm going to be bad no matter how much effort I put into it. And the same goes for a lot of creative projects. I think the reason that I used to really not show my work to other people was because I feared that no matter how much effort I put into it, no matter how many hours I spent trying to improve my craft, I would always be bad, or that my stories would be cringy or weird or just written poorly. And that stopped me from pursuing a lot of opportunities. I didn't really apply to any competitions or scholarships or anything like that when I was younger because I was afraid, and I genuinely thought, like, what if this is actually bad and I'm just wasting my time, and no matter how much effort I put into this, it's always going to be bad. And because I had all those fears, they created limiting beliefs. I would consider myself as someone who is not smart or someone who is not good at writing. They sort of manifest in your actual life. Like, if you believe that you are not smart, then you will live life as if you are not. And whatever you think becomes your reality. And if you think that you are not a good writer or not a good artist or whatever else you like to do, then that's just going to start trickling into all the other facets of your life, and it's going to affect the way that you perceive yourself. So if you think that you're a bad writer, then you're probably not going to put much effort into your writing because, like, why would you? You're bad, right? And that's why it's so important to face these beliefs and to challenge your low self-esteem and your worry that you're not doing well. Because by challenging these things, we are actually able to unlock a part of ourselves and step into that new room that helps us expand and improve and become better at whatever you want to improve at. A lot of the time, this low self-esteem comes from past failures and ruminating over them much more than you do on your successes. So I think a lot of people have a tendency to focus on the negative aspects. So if you're a social media creator, for example, and you get 100 nice comments, even just one bad comment can really make you feel bad, no matter how many nice people there are as well. There are so many amazing people out there and so many kind comments that people have left that it's just not worth focusing on the negativity, right? And I think that's very similar with our lives, is we focus on the one time that we slipped up or the one time that we tried something and didn't succeed, instead of the dozens of times where you did succeed. If you try to think of the last time you did well on a test, it might be kind of hard to remember like a certain time, but if you try to remember the last time you did really poorly, then you'll probably be able to think of it like immediately, because we love to focus on the negatives because that's what feels heavy to us, and that's what we obsess over, and that's what we pick at like a little scab until it starts bleeding all over you and you're like, oh my god. A lot of people are also conditioned to compare themselves to others. You know, people always say comparison is the thief of joy, but unfortunately in academics and the arts and whatever you want to pursue, there's always this degree of comparison with other people in your industry. It doesn't matter what you have. If somebody else has more than you or something that you want, then you're suddenly going to feel like you don't have anything or that what you have is worthless. And And that feeds into this loop where you just become more and more negative and you start seeing yourself in a lower light. And these are just two of the many causes that could be feeding into your self-esteem or your worry that you're not good enough. I think this is where a lot of my past worries have come from, because I was focusing on the one time something went wrong, or because I was looking at other people who had things that I wanted, and I looked at those things as evidence as to why I wasn't enough. And because of that, I was like, oh my gosh, what if I'm stupid? What if my writing is bad? What if my art is terrible? What if nobody watches my videos? But you know, in the end, I think things generally do work out, and if you fail at something, then that serves as a lesson for you to succeed at something in the future. And I know that that mentality is much easier said than actually achieved. Obviously the video isn't over yet, so I'm going to get into those things a little bit deeper. I think a lot of the time we cling onto our worry because we think that it's rational, or we think that there is some justification behind our fears. But a lot of these types of fears, the type of fears that come from insecurity and self-esteem issues, are not based on logic. They're just based on extreme emotion. I think a personal anecdote for me was last quarter when I started taking classes for my majors for the first time, because in my first year of college I just did all the required classes because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, what if I'm actually stupid, and what if I fail this test? And I would like hear all these horror stories of people having to like withdraw from these classes because they did badly, and I was like, oh my god, like that's gonna be me. And so I just freaked myself out, but I did very well in the classes. So I don't even know why I worried. Like, in hindsight, it sounds so stupid because I put in the hours, I studied a lot. Still, I feared that I would not do well, or that it wasn't enough, or that I was stupid. Fear is like a dog, you know, it barks at the door even when no one's there. So I think it's really important to learn to recognize that and to understand how you feel when that happens in order for you to recognize it when it happens again. A lot of the time, we over-exaggerate situations in our heads, especially with the arts. Your art feels like a part of you. If you write a story, it feels like something that you cut out of your own heart and gave to somebody to look at. And even a tiny bit of criticism from that reader can honestly feel very painful, especially in the beginning. I think at one point you gotta realize that your excessive worrying over being good enough, or your fear that you are not actually good at stuff, you have to realize that a lot of that is like not based in evidence, and that a lot of it is just coming from your fear of being perceived as like untalented or unintelligent or whatever. And a lot of the time I think people also cling onto their worries because they think that by worrying they are preparing for the worst. And this is something that I definitely used to do. I used to worry about the worst situations happening, and I used to rehearse them in my head because I thought that that would prepare me for when those things actually happened. But none of those things actually happened. Like, I used to keep a spreadsheet of all the things I would worry about, and then like a week later I would update with whether or not that actually happened. I got like 60 out of 60, none of those things actually happened. So if you're somebody who worries an abnormal amount like me, it can be really helpful to keep like hard data of whether or not your worries have happened. I think because we're also taught to compare ourselves to others, we always have this inner critic. I think there's a difference between critiquing yourself in a healthy way for you to improve at something, and critiquing yourself in a way that lowers your self-esteem or makes you feel bad or makes you compare yourself to other people. Obviously, when you're editing an artistic project or you're studying for a test or something, your goal is to get better, right? When your desire to improve comes from a feeling of lacking something or a feeling of being insufficient compared to somebody else, that improvement is not going to be long lasting. That improvement is not sustainable because it just comes from a place of fear and insecurity and wanting to avoid being bad instead of wanting to be good. But if your desire to improve comes from a genuine love for whatever you're doing, or a genuine interest in honing your skills regardless of what other people are doing, then that's how you build sustainable improvement. If you work out simply because you hate your body, then you're not going to get very far. But if you work out because you love your body and you want to strengthen it and you want to show it that you love it, then that's when you're going to see the real results. And I think it's very similar to any sort of intellectual or artistic pursuit that you're doing. So I think the best antidote to this is to build up your confidence and to reassure yourself, because at the end of the day, nobody else can really reassure you except for you. Like, you can go to 100 people and ask them, like, can you please tell me that I'm actually smart and not stupid? But at the end of the day, if you don't intrinsically believe it, then you are just not going to feel better. I'm going to be sharing a couple of ways that I suggest building confidence in these regards. The first one is to show up for yourself. So no matter what journey you're embarking on, it's so important to consistently do something and to actually like finish things that you start, right? So if you are trying to improve your self-esteem in terms of school or your performance in school, then showing up every day, sitting at the table and studying your notes, that's a surefire way for you to build your confidence, because you're showing to yourself that you have the ability to put in the effort. You're proving to yourself that you actually can put in the little steps to reach your bigger goal. And by doing that, you build self-trust. And that self-trust is where massive improvement happens. I think a lot of the time we overthink when we also don't have anything to like do. I think the times when I overthought and worried the most were times like summer break in my high school years, when I had nothing else to do, when I would just lie in bed all day and think like, oh my god, like why did I do that? And I would overthink like everything that I was doing. If I was working on a writing project, then I would spend so much time worrying about whether or not it was good, whether or not people would think it was stupid, etc. But when I'm in school, it's like I just don't worry that much. When I write a story in school, I just like show it to my friends with no hesitation, because I don't have time to sit around worrying like, oh, what are they gonna think? If you find that something to do, you're simultaneously proving to yourself that you can do this thing and that you can show up for yourself, and also improving your skills and occupying yourself and stopping yourself from over worrying. So you're knocking out a bunch of birds with one stone. Another important thing is to just stay in your own lane and focus on what you're doing. Of course, like it's wonderful to take inspiration from people, and you definitely should consume a lot of media and a lot of other artists' work, but at the same time, you should catch yourself when you are comparing yourself to them or wondering why your stuff isn't as good as theirs. Like if you really think about it, that's just not productive. That's not doing anything for you. That doesn't serve you at all. If you're putting yourself down because somebody else has like better writing than you in your opinion, then like who is that helping? That's literally helping nobody. That's probably not even making that person feel good, because the thing is that successful people want other people to succeed too. Kind of related to that is being grateful for what you have and honoring where you are in the moment. I think we live in such a fast-paced society where everyone's always like, what's the next move? Like what's the next thing we're gonna do? Blah blah blah. But if you're able to really slow down and just take a look at how far you've come already, you'll realize that you are a lot more capable and a lot more competent than you think you are. This kind of goes hand in hand with focusing on the positives instead of the times when you slipped up. Imagine you're climbing up a mountain, right? Maybe like the mountain is this tall and you're like here, and this is where you want to end up. Instead of looking upward at how much mountain there is left to climb, I think kind of looking back and looking at how far you are from the ground, that's kind of what I want you to do. And sure, there might be little bumps along the way where you slipped up or made a mistake, but overall you have come some sort of distance. And by focusing on where you are at the moment and honoring yourself and respecting yourself for being there, I think that's a really good way to come out of an era of bad self-esteem. And related to that is to remember your wins and your strengths. So one thing that I like to do is to write down a list of things I like about myself, or moments where I have succeeded. And by looking at that, you are basically giving yourself evidence to prove that you are not stupid or that you are not incompetent. I think this also goes with not talking negatively about yourself. If you lock yourself into a mindset where you're like, oh, I'm a dumb person, I'm an incapable person, I'm not a good writer, I'm not a good artist, whatever, then those statements begin to climb into your subconscious, and that kind of becomes how you perceive yourself and how you present yourself to other people, and that's how you will come off. When I first came to college, it was very easy for me to feel stupid compared to everybody at my school, so I would always be like, oh yeah, like I'm not like that smart, like I'm not like a smart type of person, and that's like not true. I know it's not true because I was acting that way. I think for a while I did convince myself that I was like the dumbest person at my school, and for a while I was like, okay, like was I a mistake in the admissions process? That's just like not a healthy mindset for you to be in. And if you present yourself that way to the world, then other people will be like, oh yeah, that kid is like not confident at all, like that kid is like very obviously insecure. Those vibes are like bad vibes that nobody wants to be around. Nobody wants to give you a chance if you are presenting yourself as someone who doesn't deserve that. Learning to develop positive self-talk and to remind yourself that yes, you are capable, and yes, you are an awesome person, even though it might kind of feel stupid at the moment to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, yes, you go girl. And at the end of the day, I think it really does help you feel better about yourself, especially if you are in a dark place. Finally, remember that nobody has anything all figured out. Like, I'm sure that every single best-selling author or award-winning author has moments where they don't know what the hell they're doing, because that's just a part of being human, right? If everything was told to you at birth, and if you knew everything before you began, then there's like not that much merit in doing this thing, right? That's not an exciting life. That's not an interesting thing to do anymore. And also remember that the average person is actually not like super amazingly talented and skilled. I think because of social media, we're constantly consuming like the top of the top. We're only consuming content from best-selling writers or award-winning artists or famous influencers or really smart geniuses or whatever, because that's all you see in the news and on your social media feed. The average person actually is just average. They're just like you and me. I think it's important to keep that in mind and remember that you're not behind in life. You are exactly where you need to be right now. So I hope that video was kind of helpful. If you enjoy my content, remember to check out all my other content. You can follow me on Instagram if you're interested in writing or you're interested in my upcoming book or anything like that. And remember to check out all my other videos because I am planning to go kind of in this direction of like making videos about my thoughts on life and my wisdom as a 20-year-old. And I'll probably post a couple of writing videos here and there just because I know people on my Instagram account want to see that. So yeah, anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I've already said that. Like and subscribe. Oh, what the hell is that? That was scary. Anyway, like the video if you're in the mood for it, and subscribe if you want to see my face again. And yeah, see you guys later. Bye.